The myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. This is one of the most beautiful, most tragic love stories in ancient Greek mythology. But it's not just a story of love. It actually has many layers and deeper meaning. Most importantly, it teaches us about two things. A, the power of art, and B, the importance of trust. So what is going on in this story? Orpheus was the most talented, most gifted music player and singer in the ancient times. According to some versions of the myth, Apollo was his father and the muse Calliope was his mother. He was a nepo baby, but a gifted one. Of course, we're talking about ancient Greek mythology, so there is a million different versions for every single myth. We just love consistency. He had a voice that clearly came as a divine gift because it was able to charm anybody. Humans, animals, inanimate objects, anything. No god or mortal could resist the beauty of his music, and even rocks and trees would move themselves to be closer to him. Some other versions of the myth assign him a more varied function, meaning that he wasn't just a musician and a very talented artist. He was also responsible for teaching agriculture, writing, and medicine to mankind. So a pretty big responsibility. He was also apparently an astrologer, a seer. His resume was varied. And let's not forget that this myth has been alive for thousands and thousands of years, and even in ancient times, we find very many versions. The earliest account is from 530 BC. He didn't spend his life just sitting on a rock playing the lyre. He was also very active. In fact, he accompanies Jason in his Argonautic expeditions, and it is mostly thanks to him that Jason is able to steal the Golden Fleece. The only reason why they're able to put to sleep the sleepless dragon that is guarding the Golden Fleece is that Orpheus starts to play his music. Once again, it is thanks to his music that the men are able to survive the calling of the sirens. If you don't know who the sirens are, they are mythical creatures, very much like mermaids, that seduce men with their beautiful voices and then just end up killing them. That's not nice. So basically, Orpheus is spending his time singing, playing, moving rocks to tears, hanging out with his friends on a boat until he falls in love. During one of his shows, of his performances in front of humans, animals, gods, objects, anything that you can think of, he notices a beautiful nymph. And as soon as their eyes meet, it's love. He has just met the nymph Eurydice. She is a wood nymph, and of course she is equally beautiful and shy. God forbid that she wasn't beautiful. So, love at first sight, they immediately want to get married. Hymen, the god of marriage, celebrates their wedding. They have a big party, they have fun, and then everybody separates and they go back home. But here is where the tragedy starts, because Orpheus was not the only one who was in love with Eurydice. There was also a shepherd called Aristeus, and he's a little freaky. After their wedding, he follows them in the forest. They apparently have to cross a forest to go back home. He hides in the bushes and waits for them. He sees them approaching. He jumps out and he tries to kill Orpheus. But Orpheus has very good reflexes. He grabs his bride and starts running. They run. Aristeus keeps chasing them. But as they're running, Orpheus feels Eurydice's hand leaving his grip. She falls on the ground. He immediately tries to get her back up, but he realizes that she's passed away. She had stepped on a nest of snakes and had been bit by a deadly viper. There is actually so many versions of Eurydice's death. According to some myths, she is going back home alone and she gets bit by a snake. According to other versions, it's the shepherd's fault. In a third and fourth version, she does step on a snake, but she does it while she's dancing with her sister nymphs in the forest. So it really varies depending on what myth you go by. Bottom line, she's gone. Orpheus is devastated. He's done with life. He's like, without Eurydice, my life means nothing. I don't want it. I'm done. Mentally, emotionally checked out. He is unable to accept that she's gone. So being an artist, he's also utterly and completely delulu. So he's like, you know what? I think I got a great idea. I'm gonna go to the underworld. I'm gonna go speak with the boss, so Hades, the god of the underworld, and we're gonna reason about it. And I'm sure we're gonna find an agreement. So excited about this new solution, he grabs his weapon, the lyre, and his voice, and he goes in the underworld. First of all, he's able to get past Cerberus, which was no joke, considering that Cerberus was a gigantic three-headed hound that acted as a guard. And yes, if it reminds you of something, That's where she got it from. And he's able to get past him just by singing to him. And the same exact thing happens with Hades and his wife Persephone's. Persephone's heart melts. Hades literally bursts into tears, and he wasn't exactly a soft one. Orpheus' music is so touching and his desperation so real that Hades decides to grant him his wish. He tells him, okay, go get your wife. You two can go back to the world of the livings at one condition: that you walk all the way in front of Eurydice and you never turn to look at her until both of you are in the upper world, until the sun is shining on both your faces. And Orpheus is overjoyed. He's like, sweet, this is easy. This is the best deal ever. So he walks back and he's getting closer and closer to the sun, closer and closer to the upper world. And he can hear Eurydice's steps behind him. And many, many times he's tempted to turn back and look at her and hug her, but he resists to the temptation, because that is the one condition. He resists, he resists, he resists. And as he's getting closer and closer, as the sun is almost touching his face, the doubt that this is not real, that she's not actually behind him, that is just a shadow, is just a ghost, starts to cripple him. And once he's fully out, he can no longer resist to that doubt. He turns to Eurydice just to see that she was actually there, walking right behind him. He looks at her just in time to see her disappear back into the darkness. She was still not out. She was still not out in the sun, not fully out. The sun still hadn't touched her face, and Hades' condition were really, really clear. Orpheus is once again broken by despair, broken by grief, unable to go on living. He tries to go back in. Obviously, he doesn't manage. He refuses any contact with any other human being, let alone other women. All he does is lay on a rock and sing sad songs until finally he dies. Now, the way that Orpheus dies, very much like for Eurydice, changes greatly in ancient Greek mythology. There is 1,000,001 versions. According to one, he gets attacked by a group of women that were upset about being rejected. According to another version, it is Zeus that puts an end to his life. He strikes him with lightning so that he could not reveal the secrets of the underworld. Anyway, many versions, one common denominator, which is the fact that his head gets saved. Generally thanks to the muses. The muses save his head. Let's not forget that his mother was probably a muse, Calliope, and they keep the head amongst the living so that it can sing forever. A bit creepy. They also take his lyre and turn it into a constellation. According to another version, the head just ends up on the island of Lesbos. Once again, Greek mythology and oral tradition as a whole don't exactly love consistency. Even though this story is traditionally considered one of the most famous tragic love stories in ancient Greek mythology, if you asked Orpheus, he'd probably say that it had a happy ending, because once he passes away, he can go in the underworld and be reunited with his love, Eurydice. This myth has been studied, analyzed, reinterpreted, used as a source of inspiration throughout not even the centuries, the millennia, with significant reinterpretations from Plato to Virgil to Ovid to modern or contemporary times. Marguerite Yourcenar, Magritte, Calvino, Vecchioni, Kerouac, Stravinsky, you name it. As for the meaning, scholars debate about what the meaning of this story is, and obviously it is so widely open to interpretation. It would be very superficial to just stop at a first level, it's a love story kind of analysis. As I said at the beginning of this video, it really shows the power that art can have. It literally can break rules. It can go beyond. It can allow you to go in the underworld and bring someone back. It can unite people, move people to an extent that only art knows how to do. Naturally, we cannot go in the underworld and bring our loved ones back. But what I think ancient Greek wisdom was trying to tell us through this story is that there is a way not to bring people back, but to make sure that people stay with us. And in a way, they potentially can become eternal. And once again, that way is art, music, poetry, singing, painting, whatever form of art. And as a matter of fact, that is exactly what he did with her, because we still talk about Eurydice today. And lastly, I started this by talking about the importance of trust. You can apply it in so many facets of life, in any form of relationship. It doesn't necessarily need to be a love relationship, but I guess it becomes even more apparent the importance of trust in a romantic relationship. Trust that the other person is right behind you. Don't turn return. Don't risk it, because you are gonna end up losing them. And once you break trust, there is no coming back. Another layer of meaning that personally I've always read in it is that once you make a choice and once you head towards a certain direction, it is so important to not look back. Even when it's hard, even when maybe you're not sure if it's the right thing, but you will never know until you walk fully to where you're headed. On a side note, it was very interesting for me to find out that there is a similarity, a closeness between this story and the Bible, a specific scene from the Bible, meaning that the story of Orpheus and Eurydice really reminds us of the story of Lot. In the book of Genesis, God decides to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities that had fallen way too deep into sin, and he just decided to get rid of them and destroy them and start from scratch. Now, he orders a good man, Lot, to take his family and flee the city. He tells them, head for the mountains and never look back. Never stop and look back at the burning cities. And this way, and only this way, you are gonna survive. Now, Lot obeys, but his wife does not. As they're climbing up the mountain, she can't resist that temptation to turn. What's up with all these people wanting to turn? She turns around and looks at the cities. And in that instant, she is transformed in a pillar of salt. And this is traditionally read as one of the consequences, terrifying consequences, of disobeying to God. That's really scary. But in any case, it is very, very interesting, this similarity. The connection between the two stories is apparent. So culturally wise, there was for sure some form of contact. If you'd like to know more, just let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is one of my very first videos on YouTube. So if you liked it, consider giving it a like. Make sure to check my TikTok, where there is a lot more. And in case you want to read more about this and other mythological themes, make sure to check my book racks. They are linked in my bio. Follow for more.